things with The Mandalorian, the show where we talk about our.
Stop, Spencer. Just stop. Okay,
Okay,
it's Boba Takeover.
okay, I'm sorry. Um, I I guess according to Christian, this is Boba Takeover. I'm your host Spencer Chandler here with my co-host Christian Miller, who has so rudely interrupted me in the past 4 episodes. So
And you
thanks.
never learn. I don't understand. Like,
One day,
this
maybe.
negative reinforcement should work.
One day when it's actually mornings with the Mandalorian, I'll get it right and it'll be fine. But today we're here to talk about the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. And this is, like I said, third episode. It was
More
in
like
my.
most Vespa.
Is that because that's what little scooters are called? Okay, I wasn't sure. I don't know things. Okay, so I have to make sure sometimes. Um,
Okay. I'm the one that made a vehicle joke though. You do the vehicle jokes.
that's true, but I also
You
don't
have
ride
the.
motorized scooters. So
Okay, Spencer. Can you name any car that's not a Mini Cooper? Three, two, one, go.
Dodge Charger. I don't know why that's the first one that comes to my head.
Go ahead. Never mind.
Anyway, so yeah, it hasn't been that long since we recorded last, so I don't think there's any new Star Wars stories with either one of us. Do you have anything?
Uh, n- no. I don't think
Okay.
so.
So I guess that means we're hopping straight into the episode, unless we can check our emails to make sure we don't have any emails. We
Just as a
don't?
tiny one, I wore my Return of the Jedi shirt yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and the cashier said that they liked it, but only
Nice.
thing in real life. Real life is where I try to forget about Star Wars. This is
Okay.
the little insular pod where I go in and think about Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, we do not have any new emails, but I mean, did you really think that we would? Anyway, so we're just gonna hop straight into talking about episode 3. And one thing that we forgot to do on the last episodes, we totally forgot how to talk about how we watched these and our initial experience watching these. So, Christian, how did you watch this episode, and what were your original reactions?
Uh, it was on a computer because me and my roommates don't have a up to date smart TV. Um, so I watched it in the morning on Thursday because I was busy Wednesday, and I woke up early. So it's not a huge story, but that's just generally like we just like to update setting we watched it in. So that
Yeah.
was it. It was like the first thing I did
Did you
on
only do
Thursday
one
morning.
one viewing this week?
Yeah, always just one. Unless I did watch some of the scenes before we were started recording so I could be refreshed, but
Yeah.
I'm just good with the one viewing for the show.
Yeah, for this show. I think with Mando, I think I could even do with 2 viewings on some of those episodes. But for me, I think I also watched it. Today's Friday. Yeah, I watched it on Thursday. So I watched it once on my. Yeah, I watched it on my computer. And you know, I thought it was okay. Um, that's just my first reaction. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was anything great. I liked episode 2 more. Um, but I guess we can get into that here in a minute about why I think that. Should I just go into synopsis, Christian, or would you like to do synopsis this week?
Well, I just have a question
Okay.
about your taste because you used to be so invigorated about everything, like at least right off the bat, you were about Star Wars. Um,
Yeah.
I guess the first time it wore off really quickly was Rise of Skywalker,
Yeah.
but like, well, okay, I guess we've been on this path since the season finale of season 2 of Mandalorian, where we watched it together, and we both immediately were like, "No, no thanks." But
Okay,
like,
but like,
I don't know. I hope I'm not. I hope my lengthy cynical monologues are not feeling like you can't express optimism. I doubt that's
no,
true, but I'm just saying that.
no. With Visions especially, like I watched it and was like, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then like even with I think episode 1 of Book of Boba Fett, I was like, this is pretty good until like I was like, this is good. I like this. I like this until I think I watched parts of it a second time, and it was on those like second viewings and like in researching other people's thoughts about it and all that stuff that I finally was like, oh well, maybe, and start to get more well-rounded view of the episodes. Um, but like with this episode, I kind of went into it with like I now have a new realized like want for what I want this show to be, and this episode did not fulfill it, you know? So
Hmm.
that was just like disappointing off the bat. So I don't think it's as bad as I originally thought it was. It was just like disappointing in the moment that I didn't really get what I newly thought the show was going to be after episode
Hmm.
2. So I'm just going to hop into synopsis so we can talk about it more in depth. We start off at the beginning. We have Mr. Boba's droid, 8D8 is his name. He is explaining the different factions of Mos Espa and how they've been divided up under the rule of Bib Fortuna when he's interrupted by. Yes,
By me, you're interrupted by me.
yes,
That droid is portrayed by Matt Berry, who was he's in the What We Do in the Shadows TV show.
yes.
That's his latest big thing, and that's the only thing I've seen of him. But anyway, one of those like, oh, because go on, never mind. Comedy
Okay.
actor, whatever. I don't know anything about him.
Yes. Well, then we get someone from the workers' district who I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but he is saying that there is a street gang of half people, half droid people who are stealing his water. I think the gang is called the Scourge, is what they call them. I think once in the episode.
Why they
But
should have called him the Clash
yeah,
or the Ramones.
okay,
No reason.
okay. Well, he also states that Boba is not being respected, and he, um, because everyone used to fear Jabba and Bib Fortuna, now no one respects Boba or is taking his leadership seriously. So he decides to go take matters into his own hands. He finds the Scourge in the streets of the workers' district and tries to figure out, what the problem is. And he figures out that the water salesman, or what he is actually way overpricing his water. So he ends up paying back part of the debt that they owe, and basically telling the guy like, "Hey, sell your water at a better price or leave." And then he hires the Scourge to be his personal like bodyguards as a group because they have no work. So they follow him on these pretty cool looking speeder bikes. I think they're cool looking. Um, I've also seen them being called the Power Rangers. This group being called the Power Rangers because they're all
Yeah,
different colors.
I've heard Urban Outfitters Power Rangers. That's why.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. But they all have different mechanical parts of their body that have been replaced. We then get Boba in the. Is it called a Bacta tank? What's it called?
The healing chamber is the Bacta tank.
Yeah. So he's in it. We get a flashback. We get one more scene of him watching his dad fly off while he's young on Camino. Um, and then we go to Tuscan time. So we're going BBF, before Bib Fortuna. Um, and we see that he is going to kind of sort things out with the Pike Syndicate to collect his money. And the Pikes say that they're already working with, um, why can I not think? Anyway, they're already working with the mayor and the
Wait,
other.
is the what? Okay, what also confused me is okay. The Scourge is the teenagers, right?
Yes.
But then, like, once we go to the flashback, the uh, the Pike boss mentions the biker gang, or Boba Fett mentions the biker gang to the Pike, and it's in reference to the raiders that were on the train.
Maybe that is what the Scourge is, and not the people that we saw. Because either way, those people that he killed on the train are the people who the Pikes are currently working with, I think, is what it's saying. Anyway, the Pikes
Yeah.
are working with someone, and Boba says he's going to take care of it. Um, so that they are the only ones working with the Pikes. He then goes back to find that the entire village has been burned to the ground with nothing but dead Tuscans left in the town. Um, and we see the mark of those raiders who he killed in the previous episode. Um, so we get a little, then we get a little funeral of Boba burning the bodies of his Tusken brothers until he's interrupted and released from his Bacta tank by Black Chrysanthemum, who has made his way into his palace and is attacking him because the twins sent him. And then we get a nice fight of half-naked Boba Fett fighting a Wookiee, um, to which the Power Rangers join in, and they start also fighting, but Black Chrysanthemum's way too good until Fennec puts him in the Rancor chamber, which there is no Rancor. Which is then helped out when the twins show up. They tell Boba that the Pikes are currently working, or are currently have all of this area under their own territory, and that he should leave, but that they're going to call it a truce with one final gift, which happens to be a Rancor, with their trusty Rancor handler, Danny Trejo. And then the rest of the episode is kind of Boba trying to, I guess, bond with his Rancor until he goes to meet the mayor to talk about it, talk about the Pikes and everything. When his assistant totally bails out on them, and we get possibly the slowest speeder chase that you've ever seen in your life before he is finally stopped, and he says they're working with the Pikes. And then the Pikes show up on Mos Espa, so we'll see what happens after that. But that's the very long synopsis of a lot of things that went down in this episode.
Good
So
job,
yeah,
Spence.
thank you. It helps when I'm skimming through the episode on my computer as I'm giving the synopsis. And I probably shouldn't give as many details in the synopsis as I do, but who cares? Who's going to stop me? Where do you want to start out?
It's I don't know. I should have been thinking about that while you're saying that. But okay, overall, I there's a bunch of segments of this episode that I like, but it's like I'm still just like sort of not blown away by it. So
Yeah. It's kind of like, I think when I texted you about it when I first watched it, it was that it wasn't like, it was a whole lot of stuff that was drawn out, but definitely didn't have to be, and it almost felt boring at times. Um, there's a lot of stuff that was 10 minutes of the episode that probably could have been a minute and a half. Um, it just took a real long time for a lot of this stuff to happen. As cool as the speeder chase was, it was really long, and it was kind of the same thing for a lot of it. And that kind of thing. It was a lot of like, all right, I'm gonna go talk to these people, and then I'm gonna go talk to these people, and I'm gonna go talk to these people. um but I think my biggest issue with the episode is that nothing, like, real up until like the last couple minutes, nothing really emotionally happens with Boba. Like, there's no like really change in his personality throughout, or like he doesn't really do anything other than hire some people to be his bodyguards until like the last 5 minutes of the episode, and that's about it. um it's one of those things where it's like action dialogue that does not a whole lot, that tells us what we already know. action
who's
action
respectful? Yeah,
action dialogue that tells us what we already know. Action, oh, something new, end of episode, is
yeah.
kind of what
But
it felt like.
even the new thing of like he's working with the Pikes, I feel like I could have figured that out if I just like if there weren't all these other meandering things.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
just like okay, that's the cliffhanger for like the midpoint of the season.
yeah, it felt like a lot of, although I think we're getting 9 episodes.
What? Why does it keep changing? I thought it was 6 at first, and then it was
i heard
7.
I heard 9 yesterday, so that would mean 6 more episodes.
Ugh.
I'll
It's
look it up while
becoming
you.
less and less of a book and more of a 1.5 books.
I'll let you continue while I look it up. Actually, this has 7 now. Maybe 9 was wrong. I think this is okay. This has 7, and this was as of yesterday. So there are 4 more episodes. So yeah, this is 10. This is one of the halfway points. So it just felt like a lot of like useless things happening. Like we kind of already knew that Boba wasn't being respected. I think really the only reason that all happened was because they wanted to have him have a new set of bodyguards, and so they needed a reason for him to kind of go. But like we already that whole scene with like the water guy, like we already knew that Boba wasn't being respected. That's pretty evident throughout the first 2 episodes with the mayor and the mayor's assistant. But and then there was like random action in between dialogue scenes. I mean, even the Tuscan scene in this episode wasn't very, like not a lot happened there either. Other than finding out that the Tuscans are working with these people, which we already knew because Boba killed them in the last episode.
And
So
the Tuscans weren't working with this group.
not the Tuscans, the Pikes. My bad. Apologies. Um, that's like the only thing that we really like were supposed to have learned, even in the flashback, was that the Pikes were working with the Raiders or whatever already, or working with this other group, which we could have already guessed because they said that in the last episode,
No, the reveal
right?
was that the mayor was hiring the Pikes, or was surrendering to the Pikes, whatever.
Was that in the flashback or was that at the very end?
That was what the major domo says at the end.
I'm talking about the BBF flashback when he goes to talk to the Pike leader before the village burns down.
I thought it was after.
So there's a flashback scene in the middle of the episode when he's in the bacta tank, and it's him going to Mos Eisley to talk to the um to talk to the leader of the Pikes after they defeated and then led them back to Mos Eisley with the Tuscans, and he's like, hey, I want to collect my money for protecting you in your route, and he's like, well, we already pay the Raiders to do that, like the people that we saw in the previous episode. He's like, we already pay them to protect us. We're not going to pay 2 people. And Boba's like, I'll take care of them, and it'll only be us. And he's like, cool. And then he leaves, and then the Tuscan village has been burned down, and that's like the whole flashback. But it's like a 15-minute flashback, and like at least 3 minutes of it is just Boba riding a bantha in the middle of the desert. So, yeah, not a lot happened in that either.
Yeah, I don't like that I predicted this last episode that the Tuscan storyline would end in a tragedy, and that's what they did, and it's not. It's just kind of lazy, in my opinion.
Do you think that all the Tuscans are dead though? Because it looked like a very small percentage.
I'm sure there were some survivors. Probably the kid was. The kid's probably gonna come back, but they showed the warrior being dead, right?
Yes.
And yeah, it's just weird how they would dispose of them as characters so quickly, before we're even really getting to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't know, like that. For me, that was the strongest point of the show. Even though I came into the show thinking that the crime story would be the most interesting thing, because you have Boba Fett and Ming-Na Wen as the 2 central characters. Clearly, they've been more focused on the backstory, and the backstory has proved more interesting because of the complexity that they brought to the Tuscans. So I don't understand what they would want to, especially in light of like it's already sort of like a a subversion of tropes of stories with indigenous peoples, but also it's like it's showing what could happen if their perspectives were really like centered. And so like why wouldn't you like try to seek for a more positive ending there and actually like using them throughout the show?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, what do you think about the new Power Rangers?
Oh,
What?
I mean they're not developed well at all, but I definitely I'm not against them being as weird as they are.
Yeah.
Um, it's a weird
I hope
um
they give them actual personalities in future episodes instead of just being, yeah, we're cool because we ride these colorful speeder bikes.
it literally makes me question if John Favreau like gets people or like likes people, or if he just sees everyone as like actors and actresses as like the embodiment of the action figures that he didn't have or he did have as a
Yeah.
kid. Like it's like I just get to have all these people, and then this is this type of person, and this is this kind of archetype, but portrayed in this way, and this is
Hmm.
their deal with my favorite childhood character, Boba Fett, and it doesn't go beyond that. We don't really get a sense of who these rapscallions are.
Yeah.
These
There's a meme that
these
I
street
keep
rats.
seeing on the internet, and it's just two kids playing with Star Wars action figures. Like, yeah, and it's like Dave Filoni, John Favreau, and it's like them making Book of Boba Fett, and it's just like them playing with action figures and having them fight constantly. It's like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and it's like I didn't mean to like zoom out so far into like the creator thing.
no, you're
We
good.
still didn't talk about like specifics of the episode, but like with season one of Mandalorian, they had to pitch the show. They had to prove that they could make a Star Wars live action show. And
Hmm.
so they did their homework. They did what George Lucas would have done. They went into myths and mythology, and they had this longer phase of concept making with the artists and the technology, where they're like, you know, bringing back the physical models and like what is the hero's journey, all of that stuff. At this point, they don't have to prove themselves, so they're just like, ah, well, this is sort of like what we did for the other shows. So
Yeah,
let's just continue doing this, playing around with things we've done in Star Wars before, in Mandalorian before, but it doesn't seem like it's rooted in like the homework phase of their creation where they're like, uh, what was George Lucas into, you know?
yeah.
Which I think
Well,
that helps the most whenever someone's making a Star Wars thing.
and another thing that like almost makes it feel like they didn't do their homework for this show. Um, although like the fact that he's even in it at all proves that they know backstory of like stuff that you know is not in the movies. But the fact that like Black Chrysanthemum and Boba do not treat each other like they know each other at all. Like even that line at the end of the episode where he's like, take it from an ex bounty hunter. Like, shouldn't Black Chrysanthemum know that you're an ex bounty hunter?
I doubt they've had lengthy conversations.
No, but if they've worked together, like if they've worked together in canon, like they don't talk to each. He doesn't talk to Black Chrysanthemum like he knows who he is. Um, in the episode, but it's also like not a huge deal. Like that's not a huge like canon thing that a lot of people will know anyway. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know it until you brought it up, so you know. Um,
I
however, I
also I also feel I get how ridiculous it is as like if you're like a not as engaged of a fan to hear me saying these writers didn't do their homework. It sounds like the most entitled thing for a fan to say,
yeah.
and I don't want it to be like I don't want it to sound like I'm like have these high lists of demands and like I take this so seriously that I'll trash someone who's like a legit professional that knows what they're doing. I think it's more just like nor am I treating George Lucas like a god. I just think that like it's because that I already see Star Wars is so oversaturated, and
Hmm.
like it just works better when someone is uh, going on their own path and really struggling with the things that made Star Wars good, and then like riffing on that.
Yeah. Well, one scene that I did enjoy that I think we can talk about is the fight scene with Black Chrysanthemum. As crazy and outrageous as it is that Boba's fighting in his underwear and how funny it looks, I think it's a good, like, it's a solid fight scene, I think. Um, it really, my
Why
only,
didn't he pull his hair?
well, I was gonna say my only disappointment is that Black Chrysanthemum didn't rip anybody's arms off.
That that too. But
Um,
I think Boba could have like had an advantage if he pulled on those little like braided
mhm.
sections of his hair.
Yeah. Okay, Black Chrysanthemum grabbed a Gamorrean guard at the end of it and like grabbed him by his shoulders. I was like, he's pulling his arms off. He's pulling his, he's gotta do it. And then all he did was like hit him real hard. And I was like, dang it. Like, it's like, not that I want the Gamorreans to die, but I think it would be great if he like just pulled somebody's arms off. Um, but if you notice, he also fights very differently than, I heard this brought up. He fights very differently than other Wookiees that we've seen fight. Um, mostly in, Clone Wars or mainly in um, Revenge of the Sith on Kashyyyk. Um, and a lot of the Wookiees just kind of like either shoot from a distance or if they're fighting up close, they just kind of hit you like a bunch of times and then try to like grab you and rip your arms off. Whereas like you can tell that Black Chrysanthemum was a gladiator. You can tell that he like has fighting technique and he like knows when to like not just attack willy nilly, but also like using his surroundings and using like other things. It's pretty cool to see a Wookiee like be very technical about fighting while also looking like he's just beating the ever living crap out of you.
Yeah, but he could have done Wookiee Kung Fu.
Is that a thing?
That's the thing. You can make this stuff up. It wouldn't.
It's
I doubt
Star
it would
Wars.
be.
You can just do it.
I don't. I doubt that would be too inconsistent with the comic that I haven't read that came out in 2015. Like, if you wanted him to have learned kung fu in the space of time between this show and that comic,
Yeah.
just have him do kung fu,
Yeah.
like a quick Wookiee doing jabs and kicks. Have you? Can you tell that I'm like on a Matrix high right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I literally, okay, I thought he killed Boba like halfway through that. So when he like grabbed him and he squeezed him so hard, you heard it like his bones snap. I was like, Boba just died. Like, did they just kill Boba in episode 3? Like, I thought they were gonna have to do like some like, like my head just started. I was thinking so fast, man. I was like, he's dead. They're gonna have to like revive him and like put him in the back to tank. He's not gonna be able to do anything for like 3 episodes, and that's why the new people are here because they're gonna have to do all the fighting. And I was like, and then he was fine, and I was like, oh, okay, you can just get hugged by a Wookiee and be fine. Like, I
Yeah.
guess that's how that works, which should not be how that works at all. But, um, and then Chrysanthemum also made the Power Rangers look like chumps.
Because they are. I'm fine with that.
I mean, they are. They absolutely are.
I don't get how Black Chrysanthemum got in the palace and got into the Bacta room. Like how did he?
Oh,
Okay, maybe he climbed up the tower.
yeah, that because like Fennec definitely would have seen him. Like, there's no way Fennec isn't guarding Bobo when he's in the back to tank.
Yeah, and I guess they wanted to have that shock of like coming out of the Bacta memory sequence, and then oh boom, there he
Yeah.
is. But I want a scene of him like climbing up the tower. That'd
Hmm.
be so funny.
Yeah. I would not. It's just jumping ahead. We'll talk about it later. Another scene that I liked was even as minimal as it is, we've gotten so little that I actually enjoyed this. But that scene with um Finnick and Boba at the table with the food and them just like actually having a conversation, that wasn't just like, you want me to kill him? Like it kind of was, but it was also like they kind of had a conversation.
Yeah,
And it's sad that
but
that little bit of a conversation makes me happy.
yeah, because I think it still lacks because
It
Boba
does.
Fett doesn't even eat food. He's like, it's almost like he knows that the scene's gonna be cut short, so he doesn't even bother. He's like,
Yeah.
no, I need to get to the next beat. Whereas I want a 15-minute scene of them eating together and talking about their differences.
Hmm. Which he
Like,
does a little bit. but not nearly enough.
What are we? Two characters with different motivations?
Yeah, he mentions a little bit of something about their differences, and then she just like doesn't say anything about it. But we get interrupted for a pretty sweet reveal that we are probably going to have some pretty cool Rancor scenes, and also Black Chrysanthemum set free. Do you think we'll see him again? We'll go ahead and discuss this. Will Black Chrysanthemum be back?
Yeah, he'll come and save Boba at some point.
And then what do you think? What do you think about the Danny Trejo being in Star Wars?
I think it's cool.
I'm trying to look
It's
up.
not. It's the Robert Rodriguez connection.
Yeah,
He
the
should
Spy
have a
Kids,
comic.
and I'm trying
I
to
don't.
look
I
up this piece. I found it. I'll show it to you in a second.
this is one of the better parts of the episode because um it's one of those meandering things that's fun because it's literally Boba Fett avoiding responsibilities for a bit where he's just like, no, I want to just pet this Rancor.
Hmm. Yeah, but he
Um,
also talks about possibly riding the Rancor.
mhm.
Uh, if you didn't know, and for anyone who is like really into this kind of thing, uh, if you're watching on YouTube, it'll come up in just a second. There is this little fun tidbit, which is a piece of concept art that was released uh before the season, and it's of Boba Fett riding a Rancor through the streets of Mos Espa, um, which I think is really cool. And I would love to see Boba Fett ride a Rancor.
Yep, sure, cool. No notes.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. But
I,
okay, but the other thing is do you think that I'm so confused at whether Danny Trejo is gonna make the Rancor turn on Boba or whether he's actually a good guy and
no,
he's just gonna.
I don't think Rancor keepers ever have any other motivation besides their Rancor.
Yeah, but the way that he's like, "Don't worry, he'll be back," is kind of like he's telling the Rancor like, "Don't worry, like you'll have some food."
No.
No, you don't think so? You think he's being legitimate about the fact that he's
Yeah,
like
he because
comforting the Rancor?
he sees that Boba like legit wants to take care of uh the
Hmm.
Rancor, and it's more than just a display of power.
Okay. So you think that everything, all the cool, like all the new lore about Rancors that we got was true, and he wasn't just like screwing with Boba?
No, I take it as genuine
Okay.
because I don't know. That's like he seems like he fits in line with Malakili from Return of the Jedi, who like if he was just there for a paycheck from Jabba, he would not have been bawling his eyes out when he saw his Rancor die.
Yeah.
So I think these owners just have genuine bonds with their Rancors, and that Danny Trejo doesn't really have any loyalty to the twins other than this is where the work is.
Yeah.
If you train Rancors, then you work for a crime boss, and that's just how it is.
Yeah. Speaking of the twins, they're still sitting in really weird, and the male hut is still using a maybe I think it was him, either way, one of them still using one of the rats as a head rag.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just as weird. Um, let's see. The Pikes are back, which I mean,
Peli Moto was in the Mos Eisley flashback.
was she?
Yeah, she was in the background with her pit droids. Did you not see that?
No, I didn't. That's
Yeah,
sick. I have to go back and watch that now.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I guess the Pikes are back. We never saw that coming, considering the entire flashbacks have been about the Pikes on Tatooine. Um, that wasn't expected. Um, and then there's that really, I don't, at first I really didn't like it. I thought it was weird, but then I rewatched the scene again and thought it was funny of the scene where he's like, keep an eye out. And he's like, oh, sorry about that. And he's like, it's all good, mate. Paid a pretty penny for this. Like, what? It's like, what? I was like, that's such a dumb like, because the way that Fennec looks at Boba when he's like, keep an eye out. She's like, did you just you do realize he's missing an eye, right? And it's like, that's not funny, but it is. I
it's
don't.
it's it's fine, I guess. It's just like that's the last we're gonna hear from that character, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just like it's that we're just gonna move on or something. I don't know. It's just I don't get why you would. There's just no true like interaction between any two characters at any point in any of these shows that's like interesting in any way.
Every time I'm
Um,
trying to think about genuine scenes between characters, the only ones I can think of are Mando and that woman from the Bryce Dallas Howard episode, um, and Baby Yoda and Mando.
what do you mean?
When I'm talking about like scenes between two people that are like genuinely emotionally like
No, but what Bryce Dallas Howard episode
the one when the Seven Samurai episode. I can't remember what it's called
with
now.
Boba?
No, Mando.
Why are you talking about Mando?
I would just you said these shows, so I talking
I
about.
meant this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Then forget everything I just said in the last five
Well,
minutes.
remember I liked a lot of season two of Mandalorian and all of season one.
I know. I was saying good things about Mando.
I know I wouldn't say something that harsh about Mando though.
Okay. Well, forget everything I just said in the last 5 minutes then, because I just sounded stupid to anyone who thought I was talking about Boba. Um, but yeah, it was like I'm really hoping that in the future episodes they like actually make these teenagers like emotionally interesting and not just like they're cool, right? They can haphazardly beat people up or drive their scooters moderately fast through the city.
Yeah, they I do feel bad for them because there's obviously some, the fact that there is such a thing as a watermonger, that's a tough thing to deal with. But
Yeah.
at the same time, they are stupid with their money if they're buying all these cybernetics.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. It's funny though because that's what a teenager would do.
Yeah.
But because that's the thing is like the black market is at Tatooine. That's the stuff that's available and probably cheaper than water.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not like that much of a fortune that they're giving away.
Yeah, probably not.
I
But
wonder if like how like in Phantom Menace they're like humans can't do pod racing. Maybe it's partly because humans need water so much that like they're just not very dominant on Tatooine.
I think they said it's
And that
because
other
humans don't have the reaction time.
well yeah that but like that's probably not the case and it's probably not just pod racing where that's the case. Like I think humans probably are at a
Yeah.
disadvantage and that's why they're the ones farming water and hoarding water because it's
Yeah.
more of a human thing than like the desert
Well, you
species
notice that all the people who are any kind of successful or like the people who in every time we've ever been on Tatooine, the people who are big and bad and are like, look at me, are always the non-humans. Like other than like Boba Fett, but he's also has like he's always been with Jabba, so that's not really Jabba probably treats him well, but I mean the bartender was okay, but like Greedo was big on Tatooine,
He's just a
I guess
bounty hunter.
in that one scene, but he not human.
I'm just looking at like the general population,
Yeah.
and there's just been more aliens that, and the
Mm,
humans you do see are like they're all 30 years old, but they look like 70-year-old.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Let's talk about this speeder chase.
The speeder chase. Okay, do, am I the only one who thought they were going really slow?
Yeah, and the sound mixing was so low. I was honestly baffled that like they weren't really messing with the sound to make it seem like big and loud.
Yeah.
Like I was rewatching it before this episode, and I'm just like, or before we recorded, and like I had to turn it up all the way just to like hear it, and even then, it was more music than sound effects.
Yeah, but I mean, do you think they're going slow too? Because like,
Yeah, just the choreography, everything about it was just like so toned down, which I think you can
except for
still
the
make something
color in their
interesting.
speeders.
Yeah, you can make something interesting without making it about skilled pilots. I do want to share this GIF though. Let me share my screen, Spencer.
Oh,
Let me
I
share
got
my
you.
let me share my screen.
Yeah, this is a cool GIF that I think you should definitely share. This was found on Twitter, correct?
Yes, and it should. Can you see it?
Yeah, there it is.
Shared by Toad underscore main. It's just one. I mean, she looks at the camera. You see all the mirrors. This is just one of the more interesting things I've ever seen in this show.
Is that in the
And
show?
mhm,
Okay, I didn't remember that shot, but it's probably because it's.
it's during her maneuver where she does what Anakin did in the Phantom Menace of the pod race, where she goes
Oh
off
yeah,
to the ledge to go over.
yeah. She's looking down at him. She's not actually looking at the camera. Yeah. Well, she is,
Yeah,
but also not.
I just, I just want more out of these characters. That being said, we don't need another uh, white brunette in Star Wars. We've got like 20 of them. Um, but I just, I'm not gonna. I don't think it's that. Whenever we say, "Oh, this is like American Graffiti" in Star
Mm,
Wars, it's a cool thing, but it's never like a deep choice ever made for the story.
yeah.
So it's always like, yeah, I like seeing a George Lucas um sort of connection there, but like it doesn't. You don't have to go bat for. You don't have to go to bat for the show, saying like, "Oh, this is why it's not bad because American Graffiti." It can still be bad. I mean, the scene was bad, but the design
Yeah.
was something cool. But even the design, apparently, some people dislike because it's bright colors and it's more 80s and 70s. Um,
Yeah.
that's
I
fine.
liked it. I thought it was cool.
It's fine. Yeah.
That was cool. Um, I like the design of their bikes. You know, I like how the mayor's assistant is his bike is basically just like an updated version of Luke's speeder. Like it's got like the same like three, if I remember correctly, it's got like the same three turbine um design. It's just like
It looks
boxy.
more like the one in Solo.
That's what I was thinking. The one that they
It
drive.
it looks like a book almost, like it's curved on one side
Hmm.
and then it's open on the other.
Yeah. It was cool. I mean, it was kind of an anticlimactic ending because nothing really happened. And um
Uh, well, first, okay. Another weird thing, just to point out, is that they have a apparently it's a rough quarry painting of the original like Java concept,
mhm.
and they drive through that. There's a
Yes.
fun little gag. I always anytime there's a group of nameless characters lifting a
A
not
pane of
very
glass or
heavy,
something.
yeah, like something that's not very heavy but still big through a street and then it crashes is just it's a classic gag. I'm pretty
I
sure
love
like
it.
there's a popular one in like The Simpsons or something with the pane
Yeah,
of
there's
glass.
gonna be so many people who hate that that happened, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, and so that happens. But then again, a reason why I don't like what they're doing with these characters is that um, Major Demo crashes, and then the main punk chick like strolls up to him, and immediately it goes from focusing on her to putting her out of focus as Boba Fett just jumps in
Yeah,
from his jump back his
jetpack.
jetpack. So like immediately it goes from like, oh, we have a confrontation with this new character to never mind,
Psych.
just forget about it.
Also, if Boba could have done that, why didn't he like do that to begin with?
Yeah,
Why didn't he just
he
like
wants
fly and land on the dude's speeder to begin with?
he wants to inspire the younger generations.
I
He
guess
he trusted them.
he's ruling with respect, not fear. He didn't say that other people couldn't scare for him,
Yeah,
but
Spencer,
he's not gonna scare.
did you know that I intend to rule with respect, not fear? That's what he said.
Yeah, that is what he said. But he never said that other people couldn't scare people for him. And then he comes out of nowhere, and you know, but yeah, I thought it
Well,
was a
it's like it's okay, so like Force Center, Joseph Scrimshaw. We've talked about Force Center a lot.
Yeah.
Joseph Scrimshaw always says that Obi-Wan and the Jedi's like philosophy is like uh knowledge and defense, knowledge and defense. Like I'll give you two chances, and then after that, I will cut your head off.
Yeah.
It's like this. It's like respect, respect, intimidate you, and maybe kill you.
Yeah. Yep. It's so weird because that scene, I was like, I want to like this. I want to like it. There are things about this that are good, but it's just a really poorly executed chase scene for Star Wars by Star Wars, like I guess standards. Like it's just a poorly executed chase scene. So I was like, man, this kind of stinks. But I wanted to. There are good things about it, and as much bad things as I've said about this episode's not terrible. Like there are good things in the episode. I just think as a whole, it doesn't really work as the next step in the story from what we saw last. I guess it's just not as compelling of a storyline. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I'm really hoping, like I said, we get more character development from them in the next episode, and hopefully we can get Fennec Shand and Boba to have a legitimate conversation about how they feel.
Yeah,
Bro,
it's
just tell her how you
ridiculous.
feel.
It's everything's just so dry.
Yeah. Yeah. But we'll see.
And here we are, still making a podcast.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I hope you do. We got to figure out what we're going to do for the Star Wars podcasting day special that's coming up in less than a month.
Ooh. Um.
If you guys know, you should email us. Nobody emails us, but you should. Or send us,
If
tweet
if
at
you're
us.
if you're a crown prince of Nigeria who has a fortune to give away, please
Mm-hmm.
email us.
Yeah. Or you can tweet at us, or you can send us Instagram DMs, or basically any way to get in touch with us, and we'll take your advice because I think that would be pretty awesome. Anyway, do you have anything else to say about this episode, Christian?
No. I guess in general, this show is unremarkable, and it sort of further makes us question, or at least makes me question, why I do this. But at the end of the day, it's still fun
Yeah.
to talk about this stuff. Um, but it also, it makes those moments where I'm like watching something else or reading something else, and I'm like, that stuff's where it's at.
Well, and I think my biggest takeaway from this show is we are learning more about canon. We're learning more in this show that makes us watch other things differently, more than enjoying this show for being a Boba Fett show. You know what I'm saying? Like in watching this show, I'm not as much being like, oh, well, I like this because Boba Fett's doing this. This is a really good Boba Fett show. I'm liking it because there's a lot of things that are like, wow, I'm all this Tuscan stuff. I'm not gonna go watch A New Hope or Attack of the Clones the same way again. You know, like
Mhm.
I'm not gonna be able to watch those scenes the same way without thinking about how the Tuscans really are now that we know them more. And the same way with like this is a really stupid thing, but like knowing that that Rancor was probably really attached to that guy, it makes that like the Rancor's death scene and his like trainers like being very sad like hit different because now you're like, oh well, they do like Rancors do bond with their trainers. And like it's stuff like that that's like, oh, this is like little canon things that you can look at in other movies and TV shows and be like, oh well, that's like a cool thing to know for this or for while watching this kind of thing. And that's what I think I'm getting mostly out of the show. So yeah. Well, if there's nothing else that we want to say, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the Last Star Wars podcast and our Book of Boba Fett Boba Takeover. I just named 3 different things. You can call it whatever you want. If you want to go find us on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Last Star Wars Pod, or on Facebook and YouTube at the Last Star Wars Podcast. If you want to email us about anything, how you feel about the show, what you and just tell us if you like the show, what you want to see next, what we should do for Star Wars Podcasting Day. If we should try to collaborate with people, let us know. You can email us at laststarwarspod@gmail.com, and we will read them on the podcast and try to respond to you as quickly as possible. Yeah. Once again, go check the first link in the description at starwarsnowthis.com. Great little catalog for all your favorite Star Wars podcasts all in one place. Go check it out. Thank you once again for listening to this episode of the Last Star Wars Podcast, and we'll see you next week.